Wow. Daniil Medvedev really just trolled the whole tennis world, huh? If only Rafa had been able to beat Zverev in Madrid. If only Rafa had been able to serve out Daniil at the World Tour Finals. If only Rafa had been able to close out Tsitsipos in Australia. Damn. But instead, here we are. For the first time in history, we have all three of the big three in one half at a slam. The only other time I can remember that happening was Indian Wells 2017, but now that it's happened in a major, just wow. And while we have all those legends stacked in that top half, we have the next gen just chilling in the bottom half. Damn near all the significant players out of the next gen are just on their own in the bottom half, and as a result, we're going to have a lucky finalist out of that half that won't have to deal with the ever-present challenge that has plagued generations of the past and present alike, which is having to beat multiple members of the Big Three in order to obtain slam glory. But given the structure of this year's French Open draw, that obviously won't be happening now. In conclusion, a wild draw and exciting times ahead with Roland Garros kicking off this weekend. So, without further ado, let's hop into breaking down this draw. I'm gonna go quarter by quarter, just eyeballing what I find interesting and giving out some early predictions. So, to get started, we are going to begin with the topmost quarter, otherwise the Djokovic quarter. Obviously, the biggest headline in this quarter is the potential for a Djokovic-Federer quarterfinal. I'd say it's a win for Roger as well as tennis fans if he can make his way to that quarterfinal, but it's a big if for him to get there, and he's been laid out with quite the tricky path there. Obviously, Djokovic, the one seed for the tournament, he doesn't really have much resistance up until a potential quarterfinal, and even then, the only scenario in which I see him being pushed is if by some miracle Fed finds anywhere near his best tennis in a potential quarterfinal, but otherwise, Djokovic absolutely scored with this draw. The path for him to the semifinals pretty much is pretty clear cut, and at the very least, I think his place in the quarters is booked. He got Goffin as the next highest seed pre-quarterfinal that he would face, and Goffin has not been great since the restart in general. He had a nice title win earlier in the season, but even if he were playing his best tennis, I just don't think he would really be pushing Djokovic beyond 4 sets at best, and I don't really think that Novak would have any problems with him if they were to meet in the round of 16, and I don't even think Goffin is going to be making it that far. His first round with Musetti is one of the few entertaining early round matchups on this part of the section as far as Djokovic's part, and I don't think that Goffin will be making it out of the first round, to be completely honest. I lean Musetti in that one. But yeah, I think that Novak will cruise into that quarterfinal without many issues. I think it'll be Berrettini meeting him instead of Federer, actually. Roger has been dealt a very, very tough draw for his return to slam play. First time he's partaking in a Grand Slam in almost 1.5 years but straight off the bat, he's going to be dealt with probably Cilic in the second round, and I do favor Fed in that. I think that Marin's best days are far behind him. He has not been the same guy since 2019 pretty much, and he's only slipped more as the years have progressed. Fritz could be tricky for him in the third round. I see him getting through that. But I think just before Djokovic, he's going to fall to Berrettini, just because Mateo's had probably the best clay season he's ever had, and it's just so up in the air as far as where Federer is right now. He's barely played this year. He's played 3 matches in total, and there's just not a great way of reading where he's at the moment. I caught most of his match in Geneva, and honestly, from the second set till halfway through the third, I honestly thought he was looking better than he did in Doha. I thought that he was playing great in that stretch, and I don't know what happened from 4-2 in the third on. He dropped 4 games in a row. I don't know if fatigue kicked in. I don't know if it was just a rough patch. There's just no good way of knowing where he's at, and I think that he'll have enough to make it here, but Berrettini's been in form, and even though clay isn't his best surface, I would say that he's going to be the one to advance to that quarterfinal and meet Djokovic. And regardless of who comes out of the Federer part of this quarter, I think that things are lined up pretty nicely for Djokovic to make it out of this quarter and book his place in the semis. To me, Federer won't have the form, and Berrettini is not in the same weight class. So that brings us to the second quarter, or the Nadal Quarter. I must admit, when I woke up to see this draw, I was quite alarmed at the projected path for Rafa to defend his French Open crown yet again, but after getting some time to think it over, I don't think it's the worst. I'm pretty pleased with how things shaped up, considering the circumstances of all the big 3 being in a half. It's probably more difficult, on paper at least, than any of the last 4 French Opens he's won. But at the same time, when you look at his draw a year ago as far as what it was projected, he was supposed to get Nishikori in the third round, Isner or Fognini in the fourth round, Zverev in the quarter, Thiem in the semi, and then Djokovic in the final, and only one of those ended up manifesting themselves. So you could see the same type of thing here. From the fourth round on, things do get quite a bit tough for him relatively, but it's nothing that he can't handle. Coincidentally enough, too, a lot of these guys that he's supposed to play, even within his own quarter, he's already played during this clay season, so I think that'll help getting a look at them earlier already. But the goal for him will obviously just be to be efficient and not expend too much energy heading into a potential clash with Djokovic in the semis. For Rafa, I think that things will be pretty routine up until the third round. Even getting Sonego in the third round, I don't think he can even really take a set off of Rafa and Chatrier. I think it'll be light work up until that fourth round. I think that we're almost guaranteed to see Nadal Sinner in that fourth round. Monfils is seated higher than Sinner and could meet Rafa in that round of 16 theoretically, but I think that he's also going to be going down in the first round to Ramos Vinolas, the always gritty veteran that's a decently tough out on clay. So I don't think that a slumping Monfils will be making it any further than the first round, to be honest, which is too bad, but he is in a massive rut at the moment. Nadal Sinner, though, would be a rematch of last year's quarterfinal and probably the toughest match Rafa played at last year's French Open. And the uber promising Italian certainly could put up some resistance this time around again when Rafa is 1 year older. but I don't see that match going any more than 4 sets, and to be honest, I think I'll lean tight straights if that match is to happen. They contested a very high quality opening round match for Rafa in Rome, and similar to the opening 2 sets of their French Open clash last year, Sinner, I believe, was up a break in both sets, but I think Rafa will be too steady. I think that he'll just be too much of an ask for a still 19-year-old Sinner, and I say that he will make it to the quarters without dropping a set. So Nadal Sinner match aside, I don't really think that there's all that much to get excited about with his section. As for who's going to be opposing him in the quarters, that part of this quarter is a lot more intriguing to me. The 3 most likely to get out of that section and contend for a quarterfinal spot would be Diego Schwartzman, Aslan Karatsev, and Andrei Rublev, of course. For Rublev, the path to a round of 16 berth is pretty routine. Maybe Basilashvili, if he gets hot, could contend there, but I really don't see it. So I think Rublev will comfortably make that round of 16. On the other hand, it really looks like we're about to get another Karatsev-Schwartzman match. It would be the 3rd of the year so far after they played in Australia and Madrid, and I don't think that match is going to go any differently. Diego's really struggled with form this clay court season and this whole year pretty much. And with Karatsev, I just think it's so tough for him since Aslan can just overpower him pretty much, and I anticipate that happening again. I think that we're going to get a Karatsev-Rublev round of 16, and it's certainly a toss-up between those two if that's to happen. Karatsev has already beaten him once this year in Dubai, I believe, but I think this time Rublev will get his revenge, and I'll say he meets Rafa for a rematch of their quarterfinal in Monte Carlo. Now, Nadal rarely loses to the same opponent consecutively, especially on clay, and I don't see that changing this time around. I think their match in Monte Carlo is a bit of an aberration. I think Rublev played one of the better matches of his career, and Nadal was terrible for himself. I don't anticipate that happening again on Chatrier. So I say worst case scenario for Rafa, I think that'll go 4 sets as well, like the Sinner match, but Rublev in his quarterfinal appearances at majors has struggled to keep pace with the upper echelon of the game, so I could easily see this being a straight set affair as well. But either way, I think we are going to get our dream semifinal with Rafa Nadal and Novak Djokovic, which brings us to the 3rd quarter with Zverev and Thiem. Real quick though, just to get this off my chest, I don't agree with a lot of Nadal fans that have said that this is one of the tougher draws in men's tennis history. I think that is definitely hyperbole. I think if you were to put Rafa in the other half, he would have a relatively easy path to the quarters, but he would have a tougher quarter. He avoided playing Zverev or Tsitsipos in the quarterfinals, whereas he got Rublev / Karatsev / Schwartzman. That's much more manageable. The only major difference is facing Djokovic one match earlier, and I think that would have happened regardless because Novak would have had a pretty open path to making the final if Nadal's in the other half. And I just don't think that makes all that much of a difference. But on to the Zverev Thiem quarter. I've already said this several times for a lot of the top players in this draw, but Zverev's portion of this quarter is pretty straightforward. I think the only one who could really pose a threat to him before the quarters would be either RBA or Nishikori, who will probably see each other in the third round. I don't think that Khachanov will be beating Nishikori, and I don't think the other seed with Dan Evans will pose too many questions of Sasha in the third round. My gut feel is that Nishikori would edge RBA, but I don't know, he'll probably end up expending way too much energy on the way there like he always does. He gave Sasha a tough match in Rome, and he certainly could do so here, but I will roll with Zverev making the quarters. He's been quite consistent in slams ever since the beginning of last year, really, and I don't expect that to change here. Thiem's path there, however, is much more complicated. From the third round, he could face either Fucsovics, who could be a tough out and push Thiem to 3 in Rome, or a potentially dangerous Fognini, depending on the mood he's in. He hasn't really been very good this year, aside from the Aussie Open where he made the round of 16. Don't think that Thiem will lose to either, but in the form that Thiem is in at the moment, I could definitely see either one getting a set off him. But it gets especially tricky for him in the round of 16 with Casper Ruud. Obviously, if Thiem was at his best, he could overpower most of these guys, and he did exactly that with Ruud at the French Open a year ago, but Casper has enjoyed a very consistent, solid clay season that even saw him hoist the title, I want to say, in Geneva. But if Thiem does not improve his form, this one definitely has upset potential. That being said, I think that Thiem will find a way through Ruud, and I think that in this quarterfinal between Zverev and Thiem that I think will happen, it'll be a bit of a reverse of the 2018 quarter that they played against each other, where Sasha just didn't have the form and he didn't have the legs, and I just think that the circumstances for Thiem coming into this event are too much to overcome as far as the lack of rhythm that he's been able to establish since returning to the tour in Madrid. If he does somehow end up finding his best tennis by this point, I would favor Thiem, but I don't think that he's going to be able to get there in time, and so I am picking Sasha to make the semis here. So lastly, we have the Tsitsipas quarter, the bottommost quarter. Yes, the Tsitsipas quarter, it's not the Medvedev quarter. I don't care that there's a 2 by his name. It's just a master troll job by Daniil. I will not be convinced otherwise. So the guy who benefited most from this draw shaping up the way it did is Stefano Tsitsipas, the guy I have been hyping up this whole clay court season. I have very high expectations for him now at this French Open, and quite honestly, I expect him to make the final here. You really couldn't have drawn this up any better for Steph. The guy has a dream draw till the semifinals. He could potentially face Sebastian Korda in the second round, which could be fun. I like Sebastian Korda a lot, but I think that Steph will prove to be too tough a challenge for him. It's really whack how this draw ended up putting all the Americans pretty much together, all the big servers, with Raonic, Isner, Opelka, Query. I have no idea how that ended up working out, but Americans and clay haven't been the best pairing as of the last couple decades, and I really think that worked out beautifully for Stefanos. I think that The only real challenge is Pablo Carreño Busta, and considering that Steph has been in great form all clay season, he shouldn't really have problems with that. Carreño Busta will make him work hard if he's off, but if he's on, that should be light work. The other part of this section is wide open, to be honest, with Medvedev's struggles on the clay. He could very well be on upset alert in his opening match with Bublik. I don't think I am gutsy enough to make that upset call right now. I'll say Medvedev will find his way through that very tentatively, but big opportunity here for someone to make a run to the quarterfinals, even Medvedev, because his draw opens up quite nicely if he's able to get through his opening round match against Bublik. It's wide open. Your guess is probably as good as mine as to who makes the quarters here. I will tentatively again say Cristian Garin makes his maiden slam quarterfinal appearance, and I'll say that Medvedev will squeak his way to the fourth round. Honestly, could even make the quarters, as ludicrous as that sounds. But regardless, I think that Stefanos is going to be beating Garin in the quarters pretty handily, and that brings us to a semifinal lineup of Nadal, Djokovic, and Tsitsipos, Zverev. For Nadal, Djokovic, I think this is going to be the most highly anticipated match of this tournament for obvious reasons. A lot would be riding legacy-wise for each of them, and yeah, we just don't know how many more of these matchups in the biggest events we're going to get between these legends with Federer, Nadal, Djokovic as their careers begin to wind down. As far as how I think this matchup would go, I'm going to say Rafa in 4. Novak has made some significant improvements in Rome and gave Rafa a great fight in that final. I could certainly see him pushing this match to 5 if Rafa doesn't make the leap in form that I think he will. I think that after that Rome win, you are going to see the best of Rafa Nadal. If Rome truly was the best he had this clay season, then I could definitely see Djokovic taking this match 5. But Nadal on Chatrier so many times has just come out and looked superhuman and looked like a totally different player than he did all clay season, and I'm assuming that will be the case this year again. Besides, it's just so hard to pick against Rafa with a track record of being undefeated in 13 semis and 13 finals historically. I don't think this is going to be the year that reign ends, and so I will say Nadal gets to the final, beating Djokovic in 4 sets. For my other projected semi with Tsitsipas and Zverev, I could definitely see this match being very tough. Tsitsipas has gotten the better of this matchup historically. Sasha got him in their most recent meeting in Acapulco, but Steph has just always seemed very comfortable in this matchup, and I would say he's in slightly better form than Sasha. Sasha has been very good through the second half of this clay season as well, and it's been the best clay tennis he's played since 2018. I think that this match will be very tight. I think Steph will also get over the line in 4, but I could see this one going 5. I'm less sure about the set score prediction for this match than I am for Nadal Djokovic, honestly, but I will go with Tsitsipas in a very tight 4-a-la team in the Aussie Open quarter or semi-final in 2020 when he played Sasha. Which brings us to a final between Nadal and Tsitsipas, the two players that have won the most on clay this season. it would be a very fitting way to end this clay season. Tsitsipas obviously pushed him to the brink in their lone clay match in Barcelona this year, had a championship point, and even beat Rafa earlier this year in Australia from 2 sets down. But Nadal at Roland Garros, obviously a very different animal. Tsitsipas has been tremendous all clay season, but Nadal in the final of Roland Garros, I don't think his first loss is going to come to a guy with a one-handed backhand. I just think when you have a one-hander and you're playing Nadal on clay, it's such an uphill battle. Amplify that by about 10 with Nadal being on Chatrier, and I think that Rafa will take this in a relatively straightforward 4 sets and claim his 14th French Open and 21st major overall. I know, my pick is the scrappy underdog that is Rafa Nadal. This really took the courage of my convictions to make that pick. It's seriously as bold as they come. I can't even say that with a straight face, man. Seriously though, with the way this draw shaped up, we are in for a fantastic 2 weeks of tennis. I can't wait for Roland Garros to get underway on Sunday, and this was how I see the tournament going. That about wraps it up for me. I appreciate y'all for watching. If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to drop your thoughts about the draw in the comment section below. Otherwise, like, comment, and sub, and I will see y'all in the next one.